real today, something a lot of people don't want to hear, but everybody needs to understand. A man might forget what he said. He might forget what he promised. He might even try to move on like nothing ever happened, but one thing he will never forget is how he treated you. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you deeper into something that many people overlook, something that quietly shapes how relationships are remembered long after they end. A man's actions define his legacy in a woman's heart, not his promises, not his intentions, not even the words he used when everything felt good, but his actions. Because at the end of the day, actions are what leave a permanent mark. You see, anybody can say the right thing. Anybody can make big promises when emotions are high. A man can tell you he loves you, he respects you, he sees a future with you. But what really matters is how he shows up when it counts, how he treats you when he's tired, when he's stressed, when life isn't going his way. That's when his true character reveals itself. Because love is not tested in perfect moments. Love is tested in difficult ones. And when a man consistently chooses to ignore you, dismiss your feelings, or make you feel like you're not enough, those actions begin to write a story that you carry with you, not just in your mind, but in your heart. Every time he didn't listen, every time he made you feel small, every time he chose something else over you, that becomes part of his legacy. Now here's the part that a lot of men don't realize. When it's all said and done, when the relationship is over and the distance grows, the memory of how he treated you doesn't fade away. It becomes clearer, stronger, more defined, because once the emotions settle, the truth stands on its own. You don't sit there remembering every sweet word he said. You remember how he made you feel when it mattered most. Did he make you feel secure, or did he make you feel uncertain? Did he make you feel valued, or did he make you feel like you had to compete for his attention? Did he stand by you, or did he disappear when things got hard? That's the legacy he leaves behind. And let me tell you something powerful. Once that legacy is formed, it doesn't change easily because it's built on repeated behavior. It's built on patterns, and patterns are hard to ignore. You can forgive someone for a mistake, but it's much harder to forget a pattern of behavior that kept hurting you over and over again. So when a man looks back on a woman he lost, he's not just remembering her smile or the good times they shared. He's also remembering who he was in that relationship. He's remembering the version of himself that showed up or failed to show up. And that's where it gets real, because a man has to live with that version of himself. He has to carry the knowledge that when he had the chance to love someone properly, he didn't rise to the occasion. He didn't meet the standard. He didn't protect what he had. And that realization can stay with him for a long time. You see, people don't just move on from how they treated someone. That kind of truth has a way of catching up. It shows up in quiet moments. It shows up when he sees you doing better without him. It shows up when he meets someone new and realizes that he's repeating the same mistakes, or worse, that he lost someone who was willing to love him despite those flaws. Because deep down, every man wants to believe he's a good man. He wants to believe he did right. But when his actions tell a different story, that creates a conflict inside him. And that conflict doesn't just disappear, it lingers. And here's the thing, your experience with him becomes part of his identity. Whether he admits it or not, he knows how he treated you. He knows if he stepped up or if he fell short. And that knowledge shapes how he sees himself moving forward. That's why actions matter so much, because they don't just affect the present moment, they define how you remembered in the future. A man might try to justify his behavior. He might say he was going through something, or he wasn't ready, or he didn't know any better. But excuses don't erase impact. They don't undo the way someone felt because of you. At the end of the day, what remains is the emotional imprint you left on each other's lives. And when a man realizes that he was the source of pain for someone who genuinely cared about him, that realization can be heavy, because it forces him to confront something uncomfortable, that he had something valuable and he didn't handle it with care. So his actions, whether good or bad, become his signature. They become the story that gets told, not just by you, but in his own mind. A constant reminder of what he did, what he didn't do, and what he could have done differently. And that's why how a man treats you is never a small thing. It's never insignificant. It's not just about the moment, it's about the lasting impression it creates. Because long after everything else fades, long after the conversations end and the connection is gone, one thing remains clear. The way he treated you is the legacy he left behind. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something that sits heavy on the heart, but often goes unspoken: the emotional weight of regret and missed chances. Because when a man looks back on a relationship where he knows he could have done better, where he knows he didn't show up the way he should have, that realization doesn't just pass by lightly. It stays. It lingers. It grows heavier with time. You see, regret is not loud in the beginning. At first, it whispers. It shows up in small thoughts, quick flashes of memory that a man tries to brush off. He tells himself it wasn't that serious, or things wouldn't have worked anyway. He convinces himself that moving on quickly is the solution, that keeping busy will silence whatever he's feeling inside. And for a while, that might work. But time has a way of removing distractions. And when the distractions fade, regret begins to speak louder. Because now he's not just remembering what happened. He's starting to understand. He's starting to see the moments he overlooked. The times you tried to communicate and he didn't listen. The times you needed reassurance and he gave you distance instead. The times you were right in front of him, giving your energy, your care, your loyalty, and he failed to recognize it. And that's where the weight begins, because missed chances are different from mistakes. A mistake can feel like an accident, something unintentional. But a missed chance, that's something you had the opportunity to get right and you didn't take it. You didn't step up. You didn't choose better. And deep down, every man knows the difference. He knows when he had a chance to fix things and chose not to. He knows when his pride got in the way. He knows when he could have said sorry, could have shown effort, could have made you feel seen. But instead, he stayed silent or distant. Those are the moments that come back later, because regret doesn't just come from losing someone. It comes from realizing you had the power to change the outcome and you didn't use it. And let me tell you something. There is nothing heavier than that kind of realization, because now he's not just dealing with your absence. He's dealing with his own decisions. He's forced to sit with the truth that things might have been different if he had acted differently. If he had been more patient, more understanding, more present. That kind of thinking can keep a man up at night, because he starts to replay everything. Conversations, arguments, small moments that didn't seem important at the time. but now carries so much meaning. He starts to see your perspective in a way he didn't before. And sometimes that clarity comes too late. That's the painful part about regret. It often arrives when there's nothing left to fix. You've already moved on. You've already healed. You've already started building a life that no longer includes him. And now, when he finally understands your value, when he finally sees what he lost, he realizes he can't just step back in and undo the past. And that realization hits hard because now every missed chance becomes permanent. He can't go back and treat you better. He can't go back and say the things he should have said. He can't go back and be the man you needed him to be in those moments. All he can do is remember. And memory, when it's filled with regret, can be one of the heaviest burdens to carry. You see, a man might try to escape it. He might distract himself with new people, new experiences, new environments. But regret has a way of following you. It shows up in unexpected ways. A song, a place, a moment that reminds him of you, and suddenly everything comes rushing back. Not just the good times, but the realization of what he didn't do. And here's the truth. Regret doesn't just teach lessons, it leaves scars. Because every time he thinks about it, he's reminded of a version of himself that he's not proud of, a version that didn't rise to the occasion, that didn't protect what he had, and that can affect him moving forward. Because now, in future relationships, that memory is still there. That voice in the back of his mind reminding him, don't make the same mistake again. But at the same time, it also reminds him of what he lost. And sometimes that comparison makes it hard for him to fully appreciate what's in front of him because he knows he had something real before and he didn't handle it right. That's why missed chances hurt so much more than endings that were out of your control, because there's no one else to blame, no circumstances to point to, just his own choices. And when a man finally accepts that, when he stops running from it and truly faces it, that's when the weight of regret settles in fully. It becomes a quiet companion, not always visible to others, not always spoken out loud, but always there. A reminder, a lesson, a consequence. Because at the end of the day, opportunities don't always come back. Some people walk into your life once, and how you treat them in that time determines everything that comes after. And when a man realizes that he let one of those rare opportunities slip through his hands, that's something he carries with him for a very, very long time. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into something that people hear all the time, but don't always truly understand. Why respect and treatment matter more than words? Because words, they're easy. Words don't cost you much. Anybody can learn what to say. Anybody can figure out how to sound right in the moment. But respect, treatment, that's a reflection of who you are, not just what you say. You see, a man can sit there and tell you everything you want to hear. He can say, I love you, I care about you, you mean the world to me. And for a moment, those words might feel good. They might even make you believe in something deeper. But if his actions don't match those words, over time, something inside you starts to shift because your heart listens to patterns, not promises. And when there's a gap between what a man says and how he treats you, that gap creates confusion. It creates doubt. It makes you question yourself. You start wondering, am I asking for too much? Am I overthinking? Maybe he does care. He just doesn't show it the way I expect. And while you're trying to make sense of it, what's really happening is that you're slowly being affected by inconsistent treatment, because inconsistency is a form of disrespect. because inconsistency is a form of disrespect. Let me tell you something clearly. Respect is not about big gestures. It's about consistency. It's about how a man shows up in the small, everyday moments. It's how he speaks to you when he's frustrated. It's how he handles disagreements. It's whether he listens when you're expressing yourself or dismisses you like your feelings don't matter. That's respect. And when that respect is missing, no amount of sweet words can cover it up. Because deep down, you can feel the difference between someone who values you and someone who just knows how to talk to you. A man who respects you doesn't make you feel like an option. He doesn't leave you guessing where you stand. He doesn't only show up when it's convenient for him. His actions create a sense of stability, a sense of security, because you can see it, not just hear it. And here's the thing. People remember how they were treated far more than what they were told. Words fade. Conversations blur over time. But treatment, that sticks. The way someone made you feel becomes a permanent part of your memory. If a man made you feel unimportant, unappreciated, or overlooked, that feeling doesn't just disappear because he once said something nice, because the human heart doesn't measure love in words. It measures it in experiences. How did you feel when you were with him? Did you feel safe? Did you feel valued? Did you feel respected? Or did you feel like you had to constantly prove your worth just to receive the bare minimum? Those experiences create emotional truth. And emotional truth is what people carry with them long after the relationship ends. Now let's turn it around for a moment. When a man reflects on how he treated you, he doesn't just remember what he said. He remembers what he did. He remembers the times he showed up and the times he didn't. He remembers whether he made your life easier or more complicated. And that's where accountability comes in. Because when a man realizes that his words didn't align with his actions, that realization can be uncomfortable. It forces him to confront the fact that he may have said all the right things, but failed to back them up in the ways that truly mattered. And that's something that can stay with him, because nobody wants to see themselves as someone who gave empty words. Nobody wants to admit that they created an illusion instead of something real. But when the evidence is there, when the memories are clear, it's hard to deny. And that's why treatment matters more than anything else, because it's honest. You can't fake consistent behavior for long. You can't pretend to respect someone day in and day out if it's not genuinely in you. Eventually, the truth comes out through your actions. And when that truth is revealed, it defines how you remember. A man might hope that you remember the compliments he gave you, the sweet things he said, the moments where everything felt perfect. But if those moments were surrounded by neglect, inconsistency, or disrespect, they lose their weight. Because one real action outweighs 100 empty words. And here's the part that really hits when a man realizes that his actions didn't match his words. He understands that he didn't just lose you because of circumstances. He lost you because of choices, because of how he treated you on a consistent basis. And that realization can be hard to sit with, because it means the outcome wasn't random. It wasn't just bad timing. It was a direct result of how he showed up or didn't show up in the relationship, or didn't show up. So when everything is said and done, when the relationship becomes a memory, what remains is not the things he said during the good moments. What remains is the overall experience of being with him. Did he respect you? Did he treat you right? Did his actions reflect the words he spoke? Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that truly matters. And that's the part that neither of you will ever forget. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something that runs deeper than words, deeper than moments, deeper than even the relationship itself, the lasting impact of how you made someone feel. Because at the end of everything, when all is said and done, when the calls stop, when the messages fade, when life moves on in different directions, what remains is not just memories, but emotions attached to those memories. And those emotions don't just disappear. You see, people might forget the details. They might forget what restaurant you went to, what movie you watched, what exact words were said during conversation. But they will never forget how they felt when they were with you. That feeling becomes the core of how they remember the entire experience. If you made someone feel valued, appreciated, and safe, that feeling stays with them like warmth. It becomes something they look back on with a sense of gratitude. Even if the relationship didn't last, that emotional experience leaves a positive mark. It becomes a standard, something they carry into the future, something they know is possible because they once felt it. But on the other side, if you made someone feel ignored, unimportant, confused, or hurt, that feeling also stays. And in ways it stays even stronger, because pain has a way of imprinting itself more deeply than comfort. When a man knows that he was the source of that pain, when a man knows that he was the source of that pain, when he realizes that the woman he was supposed to care for walked away carrying hurt because of him, that understanding creates something inside him that doesn't just fade away. It becomes a reflection point, something he revisits whether he wants to or not, because every time he thinks about you, he's not just remembering your face or your voice. He's remembering the emotional experience attached to being with you. And if that experience includes moments where he knows he let you down, those moments don't just vanish. They echo. They show up when he least expects it. Maybe it's late at night when everything is quiet. Maybe it's when he sees you doing better without him. Maybe it's when he encounters someone new and realizes that the connection doesn't feel the same. And suddenly, he's reminded not just of who you were, but of how you felt when you were with him. And that's where the real impact lies, because feelings create meaning. You can't separate a person from the way they made you feel. That emotional imprint becomes part of their identity in your mind. And when that imprint is tied to hurt, disappointment, or emotional neglect, it changes how that person is remembered forever. Now, here's the part that really matters. This impact doesn't just stay with you, it stays with him too. Because when a man becomes aware that he caused someone emotional pain, especially someone who genuinely cared about him, that awareness doesn't just go away, it becomes something he has to live with. It becomes part of his personal story. And whether he admits it out loud or not, it affects him. It affects how he sees himself. It affects how he approaches future relationships. It affects the way he understands love, rest, responsibility, and